On September 22nd, 2017, Eric Esparza gunned down Dillan Tabares, who was unarmed, in Huntington Beach. They both have mental illness. And this is an astounding story. I have, for the past 21 months, been investigating the Dillan Tabares shooting in Huntington Beach. I've come to see all sides of what's going on in our society here by doing this, and it's crazy. It's crazy what's going on right now. But I had to focus on this one thing because, man, there's a lot going on out there, guys. And if we don't focus on it, we're going to lose this. I'm here to tell you we're going to lose this. There's things going on that you guys got to know about. There's things going on that you don't even want to know about. Just telling you, there's things going on. This was one focus that I had for 21 months. And it was hard. It was really hard to realize that the people that you almost worshipped as children, that you trusted, would lie about things. But things are more complicated today than they have been in so very, very long. We send people to war and we bring them back. We give them a parade and we stick a gun in their hand and we put them on a police force. And the war comes back and haunts them. It surprises them even. They just don't want to talk about how big of a surprise it was. That suddenly their arms got heavy. Or I shot a guy 5 times, twice in the back. He's down, face down, and then I take cover. I miss with 2 shots, and one of them hits a civilian. And I'm still on the street today. How does this even happen, folks? I'm going to talk about some things that are going to be very uncomfortable tonight for a lot of people. I want to say up front, because people need to know this, I believe we need a viable, honest, honorable police force. One that can tell on itself when it needs to. But that's not the case with Huntington Beach Police Department and Robert Handy, the chief. And that's sad to say. He's a good man and he meant well, but he took a side against the right. He took a side against what he believed in. I could see it in his face. When I walked by him at the City Hall meeting, I could see it in his face. He'd sold out. And he knows it. I'm sad for that. I'm going to talk about Captain Tim Martin, who used to be Lieutenant Tim Martin. But most of all, I'm going to talk about Eric Esparza and Dillan Tabares. 2 veterans who met on the street of Huntington Beach, both with very different agendas. One just didn't want to be talked to, and the other one absolutely insisted. The one who insisted was wearing a uniform. He's still out there wearing that uniform and carrying that gun. I'm going to talk about shooting. The reason I'm doing this is for the people of Huntington Beach. First, they need to know what's really going on. The second reason I'm doing this is because of justice and because of truth, and I'm tired of watching the government lie to people. I really am. I'm just sick of it. 65 years old, and I've watched it all my life. I am sick of it. So I looked into it. I looked into this murder by a police officer, because nobody else really looked into it. City of Huntington Beach didn't look into it. The Sheriff's Department didn't look into it. There's collusion and collaboration all the way up the line to the District Attorney's Office, where Ibrahim Betier signed off on a murder. Now, I'm not here to throw anybody in jail. I'm not even here to throw Officer Esparza in jail. He's a screwed up veteran, and there's many of them on police forces all across America. I want him off the police force, and I want to take that gun out of his hand. He doesn't need to have one. Anyway, I did a 20-month investigation on this, on their investigation. Basically, I investigated their investigation, and this is what I have found. This is the only picture you will ever see of Eric Esparza, Officer Eric Esparza. The reason is tech-savvy Chief Handy had made sure that all of his pictures were wiped away from any internet, even the Huntington Beach website. This is the only picture you will see of him. They eliminate pictures of officers when this sort of thing happens to protect them. I want to talk about Chief Rob Handy for a few minutes here. Granted, I gave him some room because I thought he got stuck in a pressure position, but ultimately, I want this man to resign from the Huntington Beach Police Department. I don't care if they give him a pension or not. Just go somewhere and retire. Go fishing. I don't care what you do. Take your family and move to Mount Shasta. Do what you need to do. The chief was put in a pressure situation. Honestly, it's one of those human situations that test the morals and values of anybody. But when he came out the first day at a press conference and used terms like he had superhuman strength, oh my God. Those are the days of PCP, folks, not methamphetamine and alcohol. I can tell you this, I have seen nurses in hospitals take those guys down and put them in restraints. So his reasoning is way beyond control, and then tying this in to a murder of Richard Darland, who Tabares knew, but for them to tie it in was one of the cheapest shots I think they could ever do. And so here's the news.
The latest that we've been able to boil down from someone who said they know the man who shot the video you're about to see. Let us go to the video at first. It shows a wrestling match between the man and the police officer. Now, police were called here about 9:30 because we understand it was a call of a transient bothering outside the store. He never made any attempt, we are told, to go in the store. The next video you're about to see, we have to stop. It's the actual shooting. You will hear the bullets. This is the video. Again, we stopped it so you do not see the actual shooting, but there are a number of rounds fired, anywhere from 5.
And he's out the very next day, actually the same day, in the afternoon, without an investigation taking place, declaring his officer's innocence. This put him in good favor with the police association, but not with me. And they somehow took it upon themselves to tie Officer Eric Esparza's victim to a murder of Richard Garland, which is the most absurd thing they could have done.
CBS 2 Orange County reporter Michelle Gili is there live. Michelle, you spoke with neighbors.
That's right. What's so amazing to think about is it happened just this time last night. So just after 5 o'clock, this is how light it was outside. We're on a very, very busy street. I'm told by a neighbor that neighborhood kids were playing out front behind me on the lawn, and just beyond it, a man at his front door was brutally beaten.
His gas is by the wall right there. It's a lot of blood.
Servando Barella found his longtime Huntington Beach neighbor, a man in his 70s named Richard, unconscious just after 5 o'clock Tuesday night. Barella says Richard had been beaten by an unknown attacker right at his front door.
I think somebody came and knocked the door, and he opened the door and punched him, put him on the ground, and started kicking him up.
Huntington Beach police aren't giving up much. Servando Barella tells me he may have seen the person responsible walking through the small apartment complex on Ellis Avenue after the beating. The man was nervous.
This was in late October of 2017. Dillan Tabares was gunned down on September 22nd. Rather than spend a month investigating his shooting, they spent a month investigating the possibility of him being connected to the murder of Richard Darland. This was in order to influence the public to paint Tabares as a murderer. He put this whole presentation together, and they never said at the end that they had absolute physical evidence that this murder was committed by Tabares. They couldn't. You know why they couldn't? They didn't have the evidence. And if they had the evidence, you can bet that it's possibly manufactured. Don't forget, these are the guys that went with the body to the morgue, not the morgue, the DA's, the Sheriff's Department coroner's office. This is the part where they paint the picture of Richard Darland, a decent man, a man who helped the homeless, who put his hand out to people like Tabares, a true Christian. Not the ones like downtown Huntington Beach, not those Christians. Sorry. But try not to be judgmental, but it's not easy when I see what's going on out there. But anyway, he's a good man. But Tabares did not murder him. He didn't have one mark on his knuckles, and I guarantee you, if I beat a man to death, I'm going to have marks on my knuckles. Tabares had none, and they knew it. This is Richard Darland, a good man. I don't know if he was 80 years old or 70, but he was up there. And he helped people. He had a relationship with Tabares. And there was absolutely no reason why Tabares would want to murder this man. He was a good man. One thing about this chief, he's very tech savvy. So much so that he figured out how to put this thing together really well. He used a lot of maps, things like that. Well, I have some maps of my own. This is an actual map, and the line you see is a 1,500-foot line from the 7-Eleven directly to the mayor's house. Or right around in there, 2 or 3 houses, maybe. There's a lot of mystery about what happened before, as far as I had an encounter with Tabares. Nobody's talking about it, but I got the feeling that this man is involved somehow, and nobody wants to say a word about it, but they will. This is an important piece, folks. First, they put Richard Darland up there, a pretty decent man, a good Christian from what I understand. And then they put him up there. They talk about his arrest and they paint a picture. This is what I'm trying to tell you. They have choreographed this thing beautifully, but not perfectly. Then good old Tony Rackauckas gets up there and starts talking about technology, which is absolutely a joke if you see this in live. It's an amazing thing to watch. You just sit there and almost, you want to throw up in your mouth. It's so terrible. Talks about DNA technology. He's got no business talking about this stuff. I want to point out that he oversees, at this time, when this was going on, he oversaw the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department does the autopsy, does the coroner's report. There were 6 officers from Huntington Beach there. What makes that separate? Just a question I have. And why wasn't the fact that Dillan Tabares was shot twice in the back and an innocent bystander accidentally shot because a bullet went through the wall of the 7-Eleven, that was not included in the report? It's all painted towards getting away from Esparza. I will not get away from Esparza. He's an impaired professional, and he needs to leave the police force and put his damn gun down. This is Dillan Tabares' arrest record in Huntington Beach. He was arrested 17 times. You think they didn't know him? I'm pretty sure they did. And I'm pretty sure there's people on here who they didn't want you to know arrested him. This is tricky stuff. But this chief choreographed this beautifully, but not perfectly. Do you recall having any previous contact with him before the date of this incident? Esparza? No. Okay, and to your knowledge, this is your first contact with him? Yes. This is crap, folks. How do you get arrested 17 times by the same police force and they don't know who you are? Come on. If you read the transcript, you will find that it's rare that Esparza actually completes a sentence throughout the whole thing. He doesn't know how to talk. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know how to answer it, and that's when Tim coaxes him a little bit. He rattles off swear words and doesn't even understand what the hell's going on. I want to point out, too, that during this time, this interrogation, not one question was asked of Eric Esparza about what the hell he was doing and who did he talk to before he connected with Tabares. At the beginning of Esparza's interview, and throughout this whole thing, all the way up to the federal judge's decision making, Esparza can't explain what he was doing earlier. This is why I suspect the mayor had something to do with this. It's right in his neighborhood. I bet he called the chief called Esparza, and Esparza, well, did this. There's a reason why I never got the dispatch audio earlier. But they also make calls over cell phones. I want to point out, too, that when the chief came on, they have what's called now encrypted radios, which means scanners can't listen in on what the Huntington Beach police are doing. This is all planned. This is all choreographed. And it's sad how Tim Martin did his interview with Esparza. I tend to wonder if these guys actually knew what they were getting themselves into when they started selling out their souls. Good man, he just made a bad decision. Traded his morals and values and faith for a captain's bars. And it's sad what happens in the police force. And he was getting it from all angles, especially one of the police union. Talking about the police union in the Huntington Beach Police Officers Association, I'm going to talk about their influence on this whole thing. And I'm going to say something here in all fairness to Chief Rob Handy. He came in from San Bernardino and quickly realized this was not San Bernardino. He had 2 officers who had just shot each other investigating a robbery 2 weeks before this incident. Now, Chief Rob was trying to get body cams on all the officers at Huntington Beach. And these guys started screaming bloody murder, and we didn't want it. And they were screaming at the mayor to get rid of the chief, and there were all this pressure coming down. And I'll say one thing for Chief Rob Handy. He is an opportunist. He really is. He saw this as a chance to turn it around by using Dillan Tabares as a scapegoat. And that's where he really failed his own morals and values. Don't let me forget to introduce these folks. Good City Council of Huntington Beach. I don't know if it's changed hands. I'm guessing a few have. But Eric Peterson is still there. And, you know, a lot of the old favorites are still there. The sheeple, the ones that just go along with whatever it is because they think it's the right thing to do. Then there's this guy, Mike Gates. He looks like Matt Gates, city attorney. He's a crack up. Abraham Betier. He's assistant district attorney in charge of this case, in charge of this cover-up. And this man, Tony Rackauckus, oh my God. You know, he's been investigated by the FBI for corrupt and jailhouse snitches plan. It was just absolutely unconstitutional, but not to him, and certainly not to the others in Orange County. And this is the sheriff that was in charge at the time of the investigation, Sandra Hutchins. They're the ones that do the autopsy. This is Don Barnes. Actually voted for him because, well, had to vote for somebody, and I don't know if he's just as bad or worse. But he's in charge now, and he better be doing proper investigations. I'm telling you right now, because they're under a lot of scrutiny right now. And they deserve to be. You know, I mean, this is supposed to be an impartial coroner's investigation. You know, they not only shipped the body over there, they went with it. This man ordered it. You know, I don't know whether he was trying to collect DNA or some kind of evidence that would tie Dillan Tabares to the murder of Richard Darland. That's what I'm trying to get across here, folks. You got these people investigating themselves. I want to get back to these guys for a minute. They have a weird city charter here where they kind of like stay in office all the time. I'm not sure how they do it, but it is as corrupt as could be, and it needs to change in Huntington Beach. I'm not kidding you. This is bad. I can't go without mentioning these guys again, this wonderful Huntington Beach Police Officers Association. I just want to let everybody know there's probably still 40 to 60 body cams totaled in Huntington Beach right now. That's not by accident. That's by direct lobby and threats from these people. How these folks have so much pull in Huntington Beach, I'll never know. But it's time for this crap to stop. And of course, 3.5 months later, maybe 4, the district attorney signs off on it. This is part of the show. This is part of the presentation that got set up in the beginning. You can bet all these people were talking the whole time on how to do this. This is when I started going to their website and asking for evidence, rather demanding it. I was rather demanding, you know, and I kept getting withdrawn, statute this, statute that. Police officers were exempt from this, that, or the other. You know, and it was getting pretty frustrating. And then something really, really wonderful happened. SB 1421, an amazing godsend for folks like me who were checking this stuff out. I eventually got my stuff. They still are holding back on a lot of stuff. You got to bet that the police unions across California lobbied and put a lot of money into making sure 1421 didn't pass. It not only passed, it was Court of Appeal determined that SB 1421 applies to records created prior to January 1st of 2019. Thank God for that. So I went back and requested more evidence, and they kept refusing it. And I was starting to get angry, and I sent letters to the Attorney General. Now, I don't recommend people who think a little bit to the left, which is, I guess, this way on the screen, I don't know, left, are real welcome in the bowels of Huntington Beach or Orange County, but that's where I was, and I was pretty set on getting my evidence. They didn't like me calling it evidence. They'd like to call it records. It's not what it was to me. Anyway, here, this is going to be weird. Chief Handy is here. It's not going to be comfortable for me. For someone who's never done this, walking into City Hall and talking in front of a whole bunch of people and cameras and all that stuff can be a pretty daunting thing. TROXELL, I've been following the shooting of Dillan Tabares in September of 2017, and what I believe has been a cover-up since that time. In October of 2017 or November, I went to the Chief of Police and Lieutenant Tim Martin of Internal Affairs to ask questions after the shooting. I got about 2 questions out and got kicked out of his office. I had about 30 questions. The chief ended the meeting after 2 questions. I wanted more information, but was denied every time I asked for information. So I had to wait a year. I asked for a lot of information over this past year. I kept getting turned down for this statute or that statute. It was wrong. AB 1421 passed, and I requested what I wanted on January 2nd. I got a notice on Monday the 4th of February that my items had been pulled, that the Department of Justice came in and gave a notice that all the evidence that was waiting for me can't be released. So I said, okay, fine, give me a copy of the notice. I got nothing. In all fairness, I eventually got that notice from them, but they really stopped giving me my FOIA requests after a while. I kept sending them up to the district attorney's office, and eventually I sent a complaint to the Attorney General of the state of California, Xavier Becerra, I believe his name is. Becerra, excuse me. And I actually got a letter back from him. He's interested in looking at this evidence again, which I appreciate very much, and go forward from there. I would love to see Orange County have cleaned out from the inside out. I prayed for that, but they just wouldn't. So this is what happens. Got sent to the city attorney. I haven't heard anything since. I questioned the transparency of Huntington Beach. I questioned the morality of Huntington Beach. And I questioned the ethics and the honesty of Huntington Beach. The investigation was a sham. In the final report from the sheriff's office, Abraham Betier was incredibly biased. It's not impartial. Is it impartial to have Huntington Beach Police Department and an autopsy in the Sheriff's Department for a shooting that was committed down here? I think it's not. I'm sad about this, but I'm also very angry about it. And I'm not going to let it go undone. I want my stuff released. Right now, they're breaking the law. That law is put in effect. So, thank you very much. If you notice in the corner, you'll see Rob Handy with his hand on his, looking at me. Second time I showed up, he actually walked out in the hallway and stood there as I walked out. You know, I had a copy of the Constitution with me, and I wanted to just hand it to him. Say, man, you swore an oath to this. But I didn't do that. I didn't want to grandstand back then. Don't want to do it now. I just want this to be out. Anyway, that's when I began pounding away at my FOIA requests. After 1421 passed, it was on. I asked for everything: body cams, reports, interrogations, as far as his interrogations with internal affairs. I asked for everything. I got fought all the way up the line. But you got to stick with it, folks. They got to give it to you. It's the law. And if they don't give it to you, you go complain to somebody else until they damn well better give it to you. It's how they work. Be strong. Thank you. I have, in the past 17 months, been investigating the Dillan Tabares homicide. That's what I call it. I've done it 5 days a week because you can't do it 7 days a week. It'll make you dark. The reason I'm doing it, the reason I did it, was because it just didn't fit. Nothing fit. Not from the beginning and not now. I'm also doing this for the city of Huntington Beach. I think the people need to know what's going on. Dillan Tabares' civil rights were violated. If probable cause was under the influence, then 20% of Huntington Beach would be arrested on Friday night downtown. That wasn't it. Dillan Tabares was well known by Huntington Beach Police Department. I'm guessing Officer Esparza absolutely knew who he was and had an agenda to question him without probable cause. They knew Dillan was mentally ill and had a propensity for violence with police, so why invite it? Esparza felt like he had something to prove. Then he found out he wasn't a big badass MMA fighter. He was just another guy with PTSD acting out with another guy who had mental illness on the 6 degrees of separation, folks. I believe this could have easily been the other way around. Twist here and a turn there. Nobody seems to get that. Eric Esparza was an impaired professional. He was a veteran. And these people are trained, and I'm going to put these up here from time to time. He tried to get my gun. Do you have any idea how many times I have found that in the past 3 years in America, that that's the first words uttered by an officer who just shot an unarmed man? Maybe Tabares was trying to stop him from pulling it out. Did you ever think about that? This is the part where Lieutenant Martin, who's Captain Martin now, at the time starts coaching him. Lieutenant Martin, is your experience in the military and in law enforcement, did anything go through your head after you shot him as far as this guy was still standing? Can you ask? Eric Esparza says, can you ask? And Lieutenant Martin interrupts him and says, do you remember when you shot him? You said he didn't go down right away. Is that correct? Eric Esparza says that's correct. Well, that's why he waited 3 seconds for his last shot. I'm throwing that in there. Lieutenant Martin, and did you kind of have that, you said he still had that, some look in his eyes. Esparza, yeah. At that point, did anything go through your head at that point as far as reacting to you shooting? Esparza, yes, it wasn't working. It wasn't effective. He was still moving. He was still on his feet. And I was yelling. I don't know what I was yelling though. Folks, that's PTSD. Now I'm going to put you onto the green one there with 306,000 American men coming back from war with real PTSD. Real. And they're getting hired by the dozens in police forces. They think they're Call of Duty heroes, but they're not. And they're going to hurt people. They're going to bring the war home to us. Don't you guys get that? I mentioned before that hiring veterans is not a great idea. It's a very bad idea. Without vetting them psychologically and testing them for PTSD before they get on a police force. That should be mandatory across the board, folks. They come back damaged and they come back wounded, but you can't see the wounds. The wounds are hidden. They don't come out until they come out. They can be triggered by a lot of things. It's usually stuff like this that gets them triggered. Veterans come in all shapes and sizes, and they're wounded when they come home. You know, this is a PTSD disability cases. I mean, my God, 433,357. This is America, folks. This is what's going on here. This is what the paranoia from 9/11 has caused. Our veterans come in all shapes and sizes. They do the best they can. And sometimes the war is inside us, as it was for Dillan Tabares. There's always a war going on, guys. Still weren't giving me my requested evidence. On the street, Huntington Beach. His response was that of someone who was in a firefight. He was fighting a 120-pound guy. It had nothing to do with Dillan Tabares, and everything to do with an officer whose own mental health was questionable, and I believe still is. I'm going to give you 2 lies perpetrated by the chief of Huntington Beach, Rob Handy. First lie is the chief's report stating his officers rendered aid. They did not render aid. Now I want to talk about some stuff that isn't so pretty. Dillan Tabares lay on the ground with 5 bullets in him, 2 in his back, 3 in his front, handcuffed, face down for 9 minutes and 56 seconds. And I have the video to prove that. If anybody wants it, I have it. It's just long and I didn't want to stick it in this one. At the same time, I want you to understand, negligent homicide is letting someone die that you could have helped. Officer Jensen arrived on the scene, checked his pulse, said he's still breathing. They didn't do a damn thing. No chest seals, no stopping of bleeding, nothing. They handcuffed him while Esparza was hiding behind a car. Esparza said, "I was looking for cover." He never looked for cover until it was over. Then he looked for cover. His body cam revealed that. People don't understand what's going on. He's freaking the hell out. Just want to point that out, folks. You have to look beyond what you see. Not any time was aid rendered by any member of the Huntington Beach Police Department until the paramedics arrived and they rendered aid. 12 minutes went by, maybe, as Dillan Tabares was handcuffed face down to die like a dog in the street. The rendering aid statement was a lie, Chief. The second lie was found in more than one report, was that Dillan was advancing or threatening move when they got up from the struggle, and Esparza immediately started firing and then giving. I didn't see the man make any kind of move towards Officer Esparza when they got up. As a matter of fact, he stepped upwards and backwards and even turned his back towards Officer Esparza because he would have had to be shot in the back. Nobody listens. While he's shooting, how does one make an advancing move while they have 5 bullets going in him? With 2 missing and hitting a woman inside the 7-Eleven, I feel safe. How does one make an advancing move while being shot in the back twice? This is why I asked for evidence, and I eventually got it. Thank God. In the front 3 times. Hiring veterans of foreign wars without proper psychological examination by a neutral party is a recipe for disaster and death. Just because they were in battle has absolutely no relevance as to what kind of police officer they're going to be. Some veterans come back with many attributes, and some don't. A lot of them don't. I work with them. They don't. Dillan Tabares was a veteran, probably an addict. I don't know if there's a differentiation. Eric, as far as
thank you, sir.
Well, they obviously didn't want me talking 1 second more than the 3 minutes allotted. I wanted to finish up, but they wouldn't let me, and they had Mr. Policeman standing by, I guess he's the Sergeant of Arms, escort me out. Interesting note was a female detective followed me to the parking lot and tried to get a picture of my license plate. I'm telling you, these guys, they're scary. Exigent circumstances, a term often used by police in reports, which means those circumstances which really have no explanation by human standards. It's kind of an out. Look, I know it's not easy, but this is actually the start of the investigation itself. This is what I got when I finally got my evidence. That's Esparza pulling in right there. You can see Tabares looking at him and walking away. He looks back again. What the hell's this guy doing? Now they're about to go down to the left side, the actual left turn corner of the building. That's Esparza following him right now. Tabares says to Esparza, "Hey, leave me alone." But Esparza couldn't leave him alone. He just couldn't. Those are Esparza's words, what he told him. Esparza had to actually run around him and pull the taser immediately after he went around the corner. Okay? Esparza ran in front of Tabares, turned around and pulled the taser on him. Okay, this is the part where most people don't get because they cut the video. You got to understand, when they tape these places off right afterward, the reason is so that they can control the environment. So they get all the video and they get to splice it any which way they want to. Once again, here's Esparza pulling in on the right, and there's Tabares walking away looking at him. Tabares walks out the door, or actually he walks by the door, and he's going to go make a left around the corner looking back at Esparza. Esparza's like, I gotta go talk to this guy. At least that's what he said on his report. And then you can see Esparza trailing after him right there. So Tabares makes a left turn around the corner. You can see right there. He just goes around the corner right there. For Esparza to get by Tabares, he had to run in front of him and pull his taser right there. There it is, folks. Right there. That's the part you don't see. Him running around and pulling his taser. What right did he have to do that? What would you do if someone did that to you? I'm just curious. This is Esparza and Tabares scuffling before they go to the ground outside the curb, almost underneath the car right there. Now they're on outside the curb. Esparza is on top of him. He's got control. This is the part where he starts to freak out. He's got a couple of whacks on him. He's doing okay. You know, he's handling it. And then suddenly something happens. He freaks the hell out. And his arms get heavy, according to him. He sees his family flashes before his eyes, according to him in his statement. I want to point out that MMA fighters like Esparza, who weighs over 200 pounds, fighting a guy like Tabares, who weighs 124 pounds, they go for 5-minute rounds, folks, and they go for five-minute rounds. That's 25 minutes. He was on the ground with Tabares for 58 seconds. 58 seconds, guys. Three seconds, guys. That's how long it was between the 6th shot and the 7th shot. That's called PTSD. He just won't go down, so I have to shoot him again. I want you to pay attention to these words. He was coming towards me, and that's when I shot. That's when I knew I had to stop him. He was going to advance towards me, and I perceived him coming towards me, and that's when I knew I had to stop him. Perceive? Are you kidding me? This is when I perceived him running. You got to pay attention to these words, guys, because this is what they tell them to use. Appears, perceived. It's all scripted. This is the part where I call bullshit on the chief saying, and Esparza saying, and the district attorney saying that Tabares grabbed his gun. He did not grab his gun, guys. Esparza had his hand on his gun except for when he was punching Tabares. So here's the deal. Tabares grabbed a flashlight. You see it in the arrow right there. That's his hand with a flashlight in it. He pulled it off the right side of Esparza's belt if you're facing him. So if he's pulling the flashlight off the right side of Esparza's utility belt, there's absolutely no way his gun was pulled to the center, because that means he couldn't. That means the flashlight would have been around the back of Esparza's back. I want to point out, when you do this kind of stuff, guys, you got to pay attention to the weird little details and what they say. They lied, folks. about all of it. I remember while we were wrestling, I punched him a few times and my hands were getting really heavy. Nothing was working. That's PTSD. This is BTA's polished version of this bullshit story. Here's some different angles of the shooting. Pay attention to the last shot, guys. The 6th shot and the last shot. There's 3 seconds in between. And I want you to also pay attention to the body cam of Eric Esparza. It's been doctored. It starts when they're on the ground. Nobody starts their body cam on the ground unless Tabares accidentally activated his body cam. Maybe that's what he was doing. I don't know. Looked like they were both fighting for their lives. So here's some different angles of this stuff, but I want you to be aware of when you see Eric Esparza's body cam, the sound goes on after the shooting and he picks up his radio. Right here. There's a reason why I asked for the undoctored body cam of Eric Esparza. I still have yet to get it.
5 to 7, we are told. Now we go to some aerials above to show you the scene. You mentioned Marina High School. Marina High School is just up the street. For a couple of hours, the school was on lockdown, but that lockdown has now been lifted. There was no more lockdown on the school. Again, what we are hearing is that this man has been described to us by 3 or 4 different people that he is a transient. He was outside the store, apparently doing something that caused the owner of the store or the clerk of the store to call the Huntington Beach Police Department. A police officer
None of that's
saw
true.
the wrestling match, and then we are told by other people that the transient looked like he tried to grab something off the officer's belt.
Right now in Huntington Beach, where there has been a violent confrontation.
And this is when all the news stations jump in and, you know, it becomes a circus and the DA's office joins in.
To be specific, we're at the corner of Edinger and Spring.
3 months later, these two join in. It becomes a big joke. This is a term that's used, actually it's overused because it doesn't even apply anymore, but they talk about superhuman strength, which is absolutely crap. I've seen 2 nurses 5 feet tall take down a guy on meth and alcohol much bigger than Dillan Tabares, so that has nothing to do with this. That comes from the days of PCP, where they actually did have superhuman strength, but that's not the case here, nor should it be even directed as being a part of this case. It's an overused old term. They don't know how to let it go. I don't know what to say about this guy's report or what kind of pressure he was under or why he came to the conclusions that he had come to. I know that there's pressure and there was political pressure going on all over the place at that time. It's right before the election and Rakoukis got voted out. Thank God. Todd Spitzer is now the district attorney. My hope is that he is cleaning house. And I'm hoping that he probably needs to start with this guy, Mr. Bétier. This report was nothing but a parroted copy of the sheriff's report, the shooting board, and the chief's report. It was sad what they did with it. It really was. I want you to remember that all 3 reports state that Tabares was motioning towards Esparza. Esparza was backing up 14 feet, guys. Tabares stepped back and up on the curb and got shot in the back. Not at any time did Tabares motion towards Esparza. Esparza stated he didn't have time to use his sights. What does that mean? He was backed up 14 feet. His first few shots, he thought he shot 4 or 5 rounds. He shot 7. That's PTSD. Let us also not forget that 2 rounds went through the 7-Eleven and 1 hit a woman inside the 7-Eleven. This is about our safety as well as it is someone who absolutely didn't deserve to get killed that day. This man stated in a press conference that it was justified and that there was no criminal intent. There's a psychological intent going on here nobody's talking about, and it's wrong. Chief Handy signed off on it as soon as it popped out. Of course he did. You know, he's the main director of the show. He's the one that started it. And all these guys jumped on and finished it. It's a real black spot for Orange County and Orange County history. There's his Gmail if you want to give. Here's another pretty interesting factoid about this whole thing. You know, I went to the 7-Eleven. I measured things, looked at things, and realized more about this whole thing. You know, that's 14 feet away you're looking at right there, guys. It's the end of a parking strip. That's how far back, as far as it was when he shot. Then he moved up while he was shooting. Picked up his radio and left Dillan Tabares there to bleed out and die. But he didn't die on the sidewalk, guys. That's what's amazing. He laid there with 5 bullet wounds in him. and for 9 minutes and 56 seconds. Then he got loaded up by the paramedics. He laid there for 9 minutes. I'm letting it run a little bit so you kind of get the idea of nobody did anything. He just laid there while this man took cover behind a car with an empty gun. There's problems here, folks. This is who we're hiring. You see him right there in the reflection in the mirror. He's hiding behind a car with his weapon trained on Tabares. 9 minutes, 56 seconds. This is the part where, well, they're supposed to render first aid, but they don't. They actually handcuff him. That's about all the Huntington Beach Police Department did. There you can see the handcuffs. And there's no marks on his knuckles, by the way. Find out, you know, everybody's got opinions, things like that. But one of the things I want to point out is that this is the firemen coming, and they're like, what's going on? And they start to realize that they got a pretty mortally wounded guy here, and they're like, let's do something. That should have happened 10 minutes ago, but it didn't. Were they afraid to touch him? What's the rules? What's the policy? The police chief said they rendered aid. He lied. Esparza said they rendered aid. He lied. I understand why he lied. He's out of it. So they finally get him packed up and they take him. And they get him out. And they get him in the bus and they get him on the way to the hospital. This is a very unique part of this documentary. Dillan Tabares was actually alive when he arrived at UC Irvine Medical Center. Amazing thing. Shot 5 times, lay on the ground for 10 minutes, then get transported for 25 minutes, and you're still alive. I wonder if aid were rendered, what would have happened? This is Fountain Valley Medical Center. It's also about 6 minutes closer than UC Irvine. It's a trauma center. I'm not sure what the decision-making process is about that. But at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, you can bet traffic on the Garden Grove Freeway to UCI was a lot. You notice here it says 2 swabs of blood. I wonder what that was for. This is the coroner's report of the back wounds. Left back and the right back. And reading these things is not fun. I can tell you that right now. This is what his gunshot wounds look like, front and back. That was the last moment of Dillan Tabares' conscious life. He was fixing his hair. He was 124 pounds, whereas Esparza had to be over 200. I want to flash back to these people because they had to sign off on this, and they did. I got the feeling Eric Peterson might be more involved than he'd like to think he is. And I'm astounded at the lack of legal knowledge in Huntington Beach about how processes work. There's a reason why the chief came out that day it happened, because he wanted to get what they call out in front of it so they can start spinning things their way. This is how it's done, guys. Everybody's talking to everybody, and everybody's trying to figure out how to stay with the script. And this is what happens, folks, in Huntington Beach and in Orange County. I've been working on this almost 2 years. And 3 days ago, July 31st, 2019, this federal judge also signed off on this, which means this has been going back and forth and all around for a long time. She should be off the bench. I noticed a few things while I was doing all this stuff. I remember the Huntington Beach City Council voted to rescind being a sanctuary city, and the city became cold. Huntington Beach is not about protecting its people. It's about protecting certain people. They put money, property, and prestige over human life. Much pressure after this shooting, I think, helped create a homeless shelter in Huntington Beach. Funny part about that is I went to a city council meeting to bitch about this, a shooting in Huntington Beach, a murder in Huntington Beach, a homicide by an officer on the police force of Huntington Beach. Now it's funny, when I went to the first meeting to complain about this, there was probably 20 people in the audience. But then it came down to them building a homeless shelter in Huntington Beach to help address the homeless problem. And guess what, folks? There was probably 300 people there. They had to, maybe more, they had to open up a side room. This is the mentality of Huntington Beach. This is a general consensus of Huntington Beach and what it's become. Sad part is I grew up there. And the saddest part is what it's become. It's become a haven for people who feel like they are entitled more than the others. And they're not. My hope at the end of all this is that Chief Handy resign, that Officer Esparza is terminated and goes on permanent disability, because he's going to be permanently disabled. He already is. Imagine what his thought process is going to be if this happens again. And somebody else has a gun. He's not going to fire. Maybe. We don't know. PTSD is a weird thing. I want Tim Martin to retire with benefits. He's a good man. I want Ibrahim Betier to be investigated by the Bar Association of California for his part of not investigating this and the Attorney General already knows about that. I want on the ballot the next time it flies around a half police, half civilian shooting board of Orange County. We need it. It's long overdue. The reality of Orange County investigating itself is come and gone. You just can't do it anymore because you didn't do it right the first time. God bless everyone.